So I thought I would talk about the first 3 years that we were fortunate to win and where I was each of those evenings. It may be, as I go through this, that 1 year is enough when I look at the time and I'll just stop. And I'll catch up the next time around. But we'll give it a shot. So 1983, after 82, we came in third. 83, we one of the fortunate things was we did not own our own buses yet. We just rented. I don't think I could have made it through a season my first year as director with all the things that were a struggle: feeding, rehearsal facilities, all that. Things that, I mean, I had some comprehension of after being the assistant director for a couple years, but still to be your to be on your own out there, trucks breaking down, all that. Um, it was a bit of a challenge. In fact, quick story, we did blow up our equipment truck. We had a 24-foot straight truck, and I think we were like on 81. We're not that far from the area, but we were back down south a little bit, and it was dead. And we did not have a whole lot of money. We weren't really sure what to do, and everyone was standing on the side of the road. And I said, "Well, we do have a tractor trailer that was donated that's sitting in the Mawa Ford or the Ford Mawa parking lot." I said, "Maybe I can go get that." And we didn't have anything else to do, so they took off for, West Virginia. I forget what, I wanna say Parkersburg, maybe? I headed back with someone, do not recall who was headed that way, that drove me that way, and, went to the parking lot. On the way back, Mike Giambra, who was a, bass drummer there, Holy Bass, his dad knew how to drive a truck. I had driven the truck 2 or 3 times around the parking lot. That was it. I never driven a tractor trailer in my life. I knew how to shift a stick, and from the buses, I had learned how to, double clutch a little bit, uh, on occasion, but that was it. Moving a truck, no way. But I was desperate. So, Mr. Jambra met me at the parking lot. By the time I got there, it was a good few hours. Uh, and we drove around a little bit, and then we headed to West Virginia. Uh, I don't know how many hours that would be, 10, maybe 8, 10. It was a good drive. But we got down there and we pulled in. It was a big celebration. Uh, it was empty, but we must have rented a truck. They had to. How else could they've got anywhere? That truck was gone, dead, finished. See you later. So we had rented a truck, and they were at the show site already. So they were set for for the day, not for the rest of the summer. This was still pretty early on. It was definitely June, and so we pulled in. Everybody was celebrating. I remember people running up. I didn't know where Mr. Jammer went to see his kid, Mike. And some of the drivers came up to me and they said, "Well, what the hell did you do at the rest areas?" Because I didn't have any paperwork. We did have a plate on it. But, and I just kind of looked at him. I said, "Well, I didn't go through the rest areas or the way stations because I didn't have anything in the truck." Seemed to make sense to me. No, nothing in the truck. Why go in the way station? So they were all dying laughing. A couple might have been looking a little nervous. They said, "Well, did anybody ever pull you over?" And I said, "No. We came the whole way. Uh, we stopped at a couple truck stops to get something to eat, fill up with gas, and that was it." I hope that's still on. I just got cut off over here. Sorry about that. So, yeah, sorry about that little break. So that was that. So we pulled it in, and I won't tell you about the rest of the summer with that truck. but Dane Dufour helped me get around a little bit. The next day, we got to Indianapolis. Dane drove that night. I was in there with him. We kind of took turns. We got from West Virginia to Indianapolis. It was bearable. And we just parked facing out, so we didn't have those problems. But sometime in the middle of the day, Core was rehearsing. I said, well, I better figure out how to back this thing up because I'm going to have to do that. Somebody's going to have to do that. So I pulled out of the high school. I want to say we were in Centerville. It was a big high school, big. And I cruised through the parking lot, went down to the exit, made a right, started to drive down, went about a mile, and found out that it was a one-way street. So after gnashing of teeth and agony, I actually backed it up. And I had some people helping me, like two or three by the time I was done. And my arm muscles were never the same again. Somehow I got it back up out of there because I could not. There was no way I was going to 10-point turn it or whatever the hell you had to do to get out of it. I just wanted to back up, get back in the parking lot. And for the rest of the summer, we would go in advance, tell the sponsor we had a problem with backup on our truck. They didn't say it was me or Dane. I don't think Dane really knew how to back up yet either. And we would make sure we always kind of came in so we had a way out. So we'd go into the driveway and kind of search for, we'd go down there early and hunt out a way that we could get in, get close as we could to the stadium, and then be able to get out afterwards. And that's pretty much how we handled the rest of the summer. So that's a little side note. As far as the championships, we were undefeated going into that last show, and we ended up coming in tied for second. Uh, the Blue Devils won that night, and Santa Clara had tied us. No, Santa Clara had won that night, and Blue Devils and the Cadets had tied for second. That's how it went. That was also kind of interesting. All these things that I'll write about someday. The kids and the cadets were amazed at how excited the Santa Clara Vanguard was. Back in those days, we didn't have cell phones. There were banks of phones outside the stadium, and their kids were all lined up, calling mom and dad, going crazy. And I remember our guys were sitting there looking like excited for them. Like, look how excited they are. Oh my gosh, they're so excited. I was like, okay. I didn't have the same generosity at that moment, but okay. And we kind of watched all that, and then we got out of there and headed back to our school. And so we performed. I want to say we went on third third from the end on Saturday night, and we did really well. They were good the night before too, but they did very well. And then the other two, when I did not watch anyone else, when we were done, I was done. I never ever did this the rest of my life, but I wandered up into the press box and sat in a corner and had a Diet Coke and sandwich or something. Waited till everyone was complete, and that was it. I just sat up there. The Core came on. I didn't go downstairs. I mean, none of this did I ever do again, but it was my first time. I wasn't quite sure what the hell you were supposed to do. So I sat there. My buddy Greg Pitch was up there roaming around. He knew more people than I did because he'd been around with the band Bridgman for a while. I didn't know a whole lot of people up in that press box. I was at a couple DCI meetings, so I knew Don, I knew Mary. That was about it for the most part. So I was just staying to myself. So somehow, some way, not unusual, Pitch found out the results. So he came by and kind of whispered in my ear that we had won, but don't tell anybody. Don't look like I just told you that. So I just kind of sat there. I really wish he had not done that. I kind of took a little bit of the fun out, I think. Took a lot of the angst out too, but a lot of the fun. So at that point, I decided to get out of there. So I headed down to the stadium, down to the field. Made my way down where everyone else was. Acted like I didn't know what was going on. Everybody went crazy, staff and everyone. The kids stood at attention as they had been taught, trained. I hate to use the word trained, but we had talked about the fact that It was inappropriate whether you lose or win a show to publicly show your enthusiasm, your ecstasy, and or your sadness. I mean, the field belonged to whoever the people were that won. They could do what they wished to do, but from our standpoint, we would stand at attention. And again, we had not really expected anything like that. I mean, we obviously when you win 40 shows in a row, you think something might happen, but it wasn't like we talked about it all the time. In fact, we probably talked about things like that not enough. I was pretty anti competition at the time, a very left winger, still am. And so we've kind of discouraged the whole process. We didn't talk a lot about the other quarters most of the season. Believe me, we had enough on our plate with uh, the show that George, Mark, Jimmer, Tom Hanna put together. And we were chasing a lot all through the year. So we won, and they stood at attention. And by that point, we were all. I don't think they all went to the back like they did now. I think we were just in the front of the field. The staffs now all go to the back, kind of hang back behind the core. Um, and they start. We still had full retreats, so we had to stand there at attention. Each corps left, and they all played to the champion. So they play a little tune, 30 seconds, a minute, as they made their way down and back or across, and they would always pass in front of the corps and salute. Drum majors would salute and all that. So 8, 9 corps had gone through, and we were down to the three of us. And Santa Clara, when it was their turn, they turned to play, and much to my surprise, they turned to the Blue Devils. So I remember some folks not being very happy, staff people kind of making noise, but I was just like, let it go, leave them alone. Let's just be cool. Kids handled it like champions, and as they were, and they played. They played sending the clowns, and then they headed off the field. So, and then the Blue Devils played. Uh, they left. They played a little bit before they left, I think, because they were. I remember jamming, but that might have been another year. And that left us on the field. So it was a little bit weird. It became a controversy. Now, you didn't have social media, or it would have been a big controversy. I didn't see Gale afterwards. He had already left the stadium. And what actually had happened was he did leave the field. He went back to his RV. He wasn't very happy because they had won prelims. I get it. And the drum major supposedly had made the decision to do that, to turn away from the cadets and to turn towards the Blue Devils and play. I didn't see anyone afterwards. We certainly had enough to do and everything. It was quite the night, a long night. I remember that. And I think maybe 5 days later, I got a letter, a good old snail mail letter, because that's how you did it back there, from Gail apologizing. And that was pretty much it. We didn't make a big thing about it. Gail and I saw each other, obviously, at the next set of meetings and all. I don't remember even talking about it with him. It was kind of done and over with, and it was unique, and certainly a lot of people wanted to bring it up around me and around the corps. But what was the point, at that time? So, and again, thank God there was no social media, because it would have been everywhere and anywhere, and who knows what the heck would have had to happen. So that is the story of '83, and I'm going to stop because I'm almost at 15 minutes. So sorry about those little breaks there and there for my screen shutting down. If I'm not doing anything, I guess. So that's the '83. Obviously, a great year, exciting. Technically, I guess we were undefeated. If you want to be a stickler, we lost prelims. Um, we were still figuring things out. Food operation was rough. Rehearsals. No one, I don't think, in those days. Well, rarely did you have great rehearsal facilities, but we had a few now and then. But we also had places that were also really rough. Um, right. The one last story. The quick. The 2 nights before, I think we were in South Carolina, maybe 3 nights before. We won, but we almost lost to Santa Clara. We had a big battle over hash marks right off the bat, guys. I was about hash marks. Gail, George and Mark and those guys had gone on to check the field out after we got there. The show had already started, and they came back bullshit. And I could not arrange for a while to get it done. There were no breaks or anything. So finally, they did it. I don't know when Santa Clara was on, but I think we just did it before we went on. Again, this was rough and ready days. You didn't have Tony DiCarlo, you didn't have the organization that you have now. So we just kind of charged out and put lines that we couldn't see anything. Scale flipped out. I remember there's a big controversy there. He was all over me. I'm like, look, we just want lines. And we ended up going out and get the lines, and the whoever the coordinator was let us do it. And that was that. But it certainly came back a few other times where we needed to have lines. But with the drills that we were doing right out of the gate, I mean, without hash marks, without lines, without some kind of grid, we were in big trouble. We couldn't. I mean, we well, eventually we did no lines at the Olympics, but that was 20 something years later. So, yeah, that was a little bit tense, and the core was tense. It was long, and we had a couple days off. I think we had a show down in Georgia somewhere. Not a whole lot of cores in the show. So actually, on our night with no show, I let the kids go to the movie, and I'll never forget. George and Mark were just cursing me out that I let them go to the movies 2 or 3 days before prelims. But I just was my sense that we were shot. I mean, we were trying too hard. We still were doing well, but tension was high. The staff was crazy. I was probably crazy. You know, we did 40 shows that year, so quite a few more. Well, I noticed the chorus this year are doing 20 shows. So we were doing twice as many shows. We'd be out on tour in early June, and we go to the third week of August. Back in those days, DCI's was on the third Saturday in August, so it was pretty brutal. But I let them go. It all worked out fine. We came back. Well, that extra show we had was there was nobody else in the show, so that was fine. And we did lose prelims, and I probably heard about it a little bit, but luckily we did well and were awarded our first championship that night in Miami, of all places, uh, in beautiful Florida. So that's it. That's my little story for now. I'll probably type it up in a little cleaner format someday, but that's just 1983. So always a lot to talk about around here. I hope you subscribe. I am going to a little bit of a paid format soon that'll allow people access. You won't not have access, but they'll have access to extra stuff. Like I said I had to do some research. I've been working on uh, looking at the financial situations of all the drum corps, beginning with their last uh, tax return, which from some is 2024. A few have 2025, and it's pretty dramatic the shifts in the activity over the years. And it's probably worth talking about, I think. So that's the kind of stuff that will be available to people that are paying that $5 a month, which is I don't think is a whole lot. I probably subscribe to 15 different people already, but I'm a big reader. So take a look at that, and I'll be letting you know about all those kind of things. I have the other Substacks. If you snoop around a little bit inside of this setup, I have a drum corps commentary, which will have a lot of things in it shortly as the season kicks off. There's a there's one about running, which has nothing to do with anything here, but I am a runner and I kind of use it to kind of talk to other runners about what we're trying to do. I had a couple not bad, but reasonable injuries. My goal is to run my first marathon at the age of 70, which will be the marathon will be November 22nd in Philadelphia. So that's what I'm shooting for. Kind of on my comeback at like 2 months of not doing anything. And what's the other one? Oh, my normal life. That's a little bit about me growing up, thinking I was having a normal life, but as I got a little bit older, not so much. A little bit complicated, a lot of it complicated. and sometimes entertaining, sometimes a little scary. But yeah, there's a lot that happened along the way to the cadets and through a lot of those years, so that nobody really ever knew about or I never talked about. So that's it for me. Thank you so much. Hope you have a chance to take a look, tell your friends, tell your grandmothers, and I'll talk to you down the road. Thanks. If I can stop.